Well, thanks for staying with us. Now we begin with the details starting from education, and about 5,000 caterers under the school feeding program have not been paid for their services since the beginning of 2013. This situation has resulted in inconsistent feeding of pupils captured under the program. TV3 has gathered that some of the caterers in the Greater Accra, Ashanti, Northern and Volta regions are hatching plans to force government to pay them off. Meanwhile, the national coordinator of the Ghana School Feeding Program, Mr. Seidu Adamu, who confirmed that the program was indebted to the caterers, says that they are working towards clearing the areas, and we will soon be joined by one of the caterers on the line to tell us more on the issue. Right, so for very odd reasons, we will call this caterer, Antiama, who has pleaded anonymity. Good afternoon to you, Antiama, and thanks for joining us on Midday Live. Hello, Antiama.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us on Midday Live. Right, we understand that 5,000 caterers under the school feeding program have not been paid. Now, how serious is the issue?
In fact, we have not been paid for last term, that is second term and third term.
Right.
You know, we have just finished the third term.
Can you tell me how long has this been going on? How long have they been owing you arrears? I'm asking you, how many months has government been indebted to you?
The second term, I don't know the number of months that are in the second term.
Is it from the beginning? Is it from the beginning of this year?
For the whole of the second term, we know we have 3 school terms: first term, second term, and third term. So we have not been paid for the second term, and we have just ended the third term.
And how is this affecting the supply of food to the pupils in terms of quality and quantity as well?
Oh, it has affected us so much. You know, some of us went for loans from the banks, some went to Maslock, and we've taken loans for the job. And you know, we have to pay the interest and the capital. And once we have not been paid for so long, it's a problem for us. But if you talk about the quality of food, God being on our side, we thank God that for all the 2 terms that we have cooked, there has not been any complaint of food poisoning or anything, despite the difficulties.
Okay. Now, the plate...
Thank God.
Okay.
But the problem is that it doesn't affect the quality of the food. It is the quantity of food that we give to the children that is affected, because we try as much as possible to give them a good quality food.
Right, Antiama, now with the issue of these deaths going on, a plate of meal I know has been moved from 40 pesos to 50 pesos. What would you say on that particular one?
Please, have not told us anything about that. There is no confirmation.
So you are not aware?
People say it is 50 pesos now, but there is no confirmation.
So you are not aware a plate of food is now 50 pesos? It has moved from 40 pesos to 50 pesos. You don't know anything about it? Antiama? Well, we lost Antiama there, but we understand that about 5,000 caterers under the school feeding program have not been paid for their services since the beginning of 2013. We would like to see once again if Antiama is still on the line. Hello, Antiama. Right, so TV3 has gathered that some of the caterers in the Greater Accra, Ashanti, Northern and Volta regions are hatching plans to force government to pay them off. Meanwhile, the national coordinator, Seidu Adamu, has confirmed the program is indebted, and we are trying to reach him to also react to this matter. We understand that Antiama is back on the line again. Well, so sorry about that. We are still trying to get the national coordinator of the school feeding program also Mr. Seydou Adamu. But in the meantime, we would take a look at that story that talks about the increment of a plate of food from 40 pesos to 50 pesos per student.
Parliament are of the view government cannot be the sole funding agent.
We know when government touches anything which is to do with a business activity, it doesn't work. So why do we still go on this track? It started with about 40,000 children, and now we are talking about 1.something million. So it's moved away from the pilot stage. So if we want to make it sustainable for the future, we definitely have to get a specific role for the private sector to carry on with this service.
But
Well, so we'd have to cut into that story and speak to the national coordinator of the school feeding program, who has just joined us via phone, Seydou Adamu. Good afternoon to you, and thanks for joining us on Midday Live.
Good afternoon.
Now, Mr. Adamu, my first question to you is, when do you intend to pay these caterers?
The caterers will be paid some money with effect from Monday. But everything has been processed. The money will hit Bank of Ghana this evening, and I'm sure by Monday it will be transferred to the district account. So the caterers should expect money early next week.
Now, besides that, I'm sure that the issue of indebtedness had to do with financing. Would you say that you have sustained funds to continue with this program for these caterers?
Well, that has been the issue of financing. But you agree with me, we never had this story last year. You know, it is this year that because of the budgetary constraints, we have run into these difficulties. But as I'm talking to you, the Minister of Finance has arranged a sequence of a release of payments. I told you just last Friday some money was released, and that's what we are paying, affecting us from Monday. And I'm told that early August some other money will also be released, and then some money will be released early September to clear all the outstanding areas for this academic year. That is the 2012-2013 academic year. So we'll clear all the areas before we start the new academic year in September.
But Mr. Seydou, one would want to find out from you, how did we get to this stage? Should we wait till this long period and wait for these caterers to be indebted to their creditors before we plan chunks of monies to dish out to them?
No, for some time now, I think the country hasn't gone into such budgetary difficulties as this year. And I'm told that from now going, we'll see how some funds will be ring-fenced for the program, so that we don't run into this kind of thing again. And that's why I've announced the payment that will be made between now and September before next academic year begins. And subsequently, the Minister of Finance will taking judicious notice of whatever they need to do to avoid recurrence.
Now, the issue of having a sustainable finance ground to move this project ahead is also another problem. How do we move forward?
Well, if you have been following events of the program, we are formulating a policy, and the policy will be followed by a legislation that will guarantee the legal status of the program. And in that legislation, I think the source of funding will be identified. And I'm sure that very soon we'll get over this financial hiccups.
Mr. Adamu, we had the opportunity to also interact with these caterers who are not even aware of one plate per child, moving from 40 pesos to 50 pesos. Can you explain this to us?
Well, the budgetary allocation this year has been approved based on 50 pesos. And I think the minister announced in one forum that takes effect from the beginning of the third term, that's somewhere May. So the May tranche, the third term tranche will be based on 50 pesos. Right. And we are hoping that the Ministry of Finance will revise the rates for the next budget to bring it to reality with the prevailing prices in the country.
And do you think this 50 pesos is enough?
50 pesos is not enough.
So
and
why then 50 pesos?
We are looking forward for an increase. And we'll be talking to the Minister of Finance, and this year's budget, for instance, will make proposals for an increment. So the Minister for Local Government hopes to request for an increase in the funding, and I think that will be done for the 2014 budget.
Right, so if you agree that 50 pesos is not enough, how much would you propose would be enough per student?
Well, that's one we are discussing, and it is going to be after some serious consultation and then some permutation. So I cannot say it now, but we hope to go beyond 50 pesos.
All right, Mr. Seidu Adamu, National Coordinator, School Feeding Program, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, touching on about 5,000 caterers who are under the School Feeding Program who have not been paid for their services since the beginning of 2013. Now, we will go back to that earlier story on the increment of the food per plate for a pupil from 40 pesos to 50 pesos.
Last 5 years has stayed at 40 pesos per child a day with 5% withholding tax. Caterers found that figure paltry, a point they kept citing for their inability to provide nutritious meals to children hooked onto the program. The meals, in frequent cases, were described by monitors as deeply appalling. Funding for the program has not been sustainable, and quite majority of the time, payment to caterers delayed. Despite the bashing, the meals still did a trick to increase enrollment in several communities. The fee has been raised from 40 pesos to 50 pesos. Some caterers find the 10 pesos increase still ridiculous. They pleaded with the news team to hide their identities.
With all the inflation for the past 4.5 years, there has never been any increment for the school feeding caterers. We have been feeding the children for the past years on 1 cedi, 90 pesos for a whole week. That is 5 days. So if the increment is going to come and is going to be 50 pesos, which will come down to 48 pesos, I don't think we will be happy, we will be glad. We wish it goes to 1 cedi.
The national coordinator of the school feeding program, Seidu Adamu, promised intense commitment.
We are also discussing with them the possible exemption of the caterers allowances from taxation as it is now. We are hoping that the Ministry of Finance will look at it to give them exemption from the tax that they are paying. I'm looking forward to the minister, in case he comes up with a supplementary budget, to review this 50 pesos. We were recommending that if we could be giving about 80 pesos per child, maybe a bit reasonable.
Government is targeting to feed about 2 million peoples in 2014, backed by sustainable funding.